Meritocracy. It's the system that pretty much shapes our entire world. It's that promise that if you've got the talent and you put in the hard work, you're going to go straight to the top. But today, we're diving into a fascinating explainer that uses a really old story to offer a radical critique of that whole idea. All right, let's jump right in.
And it all kicks off with this one giant question. What if the very rules we all play by to get ahead, the entire system we use to measure who's a success and who isn't, what if it's all just wrong? That's the huge idea we're going to tackle, and it might just challenge everything you think you know about achievement.
Okay, so first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. We're going to start with the meritocracy we all know and well live in, the one that says advancement is all about your ability and your skill. I mean, on the surface, it sounds perfect, right? A system where the most powerful positions are held by people with the most ability, the sharpest skills, the best education. The best and the brightest rise to the top. It seems logical, it sounds fair, but is it really?
And this is where the source's critique really starts to land some punches. It argues that the promise of advancement by ability can quickly turn into elitism. Closed-off networks and legacy admissions. The idea of rewarding skill, well, that often just becomes about managing up, just pleasing your boss instead of actually doing good work. And before you know it, the whole idea of the best rising to the top becomes a rigged system, a plutocracy, where the people in power just keep changing the rules to make sure they and their friends always win.
So this brings us to the core argument from our source. The real problem with meritocracy, from this point of view, isn't just that it can get corrupted. It's the entire foundation. It's a system built around what humans can achieve and what humans can judge. And that, the source argues, is in direct conflict with a God-centered view of the world.
To really drive this point home, our source zooms in on this one incredible, dramatic encounter. Think of it as a meeting in the dark, where the system's absolute star pupil comes face-to-face with a teacher who is playing a completely different game.
So let me introduce you to Nicodemus. This guy is the total package. He's a Pharisee, so he's a top legal scholar. He's a member of the Sanhedrin, which is basically the Supreme Court of its day. He's literally known as the teacher of Israel. By every single measure of his society's meritocracy, he's at the very, very top. He is the system's poster child.
Now, the source really zeroes in on this detail. He comes to Jesus at night. And this isn't just about what time it was, it's symbolic of his whole situation. He's in spiritual darkness, intellectual darkness. The source suggests he kind of prefers the dark because that's where things can stay hidden, right?
And here's what's so fascinating. Nicodemus isn't some hater. He sees the miracles, the signs. He even admits, we know you're a teacher who comes from God. But his entire education, his whole merit-based way of thinking, it acts like a filter. It keeps him from seeing what's really going on. He can see the credentials, but he can't see the divinity.
Okay, so now we get to the absolute heart of their meeting. And this is where Jesus is about to just completely short-circuit Nicodemus's logical step-by-step brain with an idea that, to a guy like him, is just impossible. It doesn't compute.
And there it is. Jesus doesn't give him a new 5-step plan or a better ladder to climb. He just throws the whole ladder out. He says the only way in is to be born from above. Now, imagine you're a man who has earned everything, achieved everything. This concept is from another planet. And Nicodemus' response? It's just perfect. It shows you exactly where his head is at. He can only think about this physically, literally. His mind is so stuck in the earthly system of cause and effect that this idea of a spiritual rebirth just sounds like, well, crazy talk. You can almost hear him scratching his head.
So Jesus kind of has to break it down for him. Look, there are two different kinds of birth. There's the one you know, the physical birth, born of the flesh, and that gives you a physical life. But to see God's kingdom, you need a totally different kind of birth, a spiritual one, and it's initiated by the Spirit. You can't work your way into it. It's a completely different reality.
And to help him get it, Jesus uses these two amazing metaphors that a guy like Nicodemus really should have understood. He talks about being born of water and the Spirit. The source explains that water was this well-known symbol for spiritual cleansing and renewal. And the wind, well, the wind represents the Holy Spirit. You can't see it, you can't control it, you don't know where it comes from or where it's going, but you absolutely see its effects. It's sovereign, it's mysterious, and it is totally outside of our control.
So if all your merits, all your good works, all your achievements don't get you into this new kingdom, then what does? Well, this next part explains the totally new system that Jesus lays out for Nicodemus.
Jesus reaches back into Nicodemus's own scriptures for this incredible analogy. He compares himself to that bronze serpent that Moses held up in the desert. You remember the story. Anyone who was bitten by a poisonous snake just had to look at that serpent on the pole and they'd be physically healed. In the same way, Jesus says he has to be lifted up on a cross so that anyone who simply looks to him, who believes in him, will be spiritually saved. It's a total shift. The key action isn't earning, it's looking, it's believing.
And this all leads to probably the most famous verse in the entire Bible, which is really the ultimate summary of this new system. Salvation isn't some prize you win at the end of the meritocracy game. It's a gift. It's given. The basis for getting in isn't your own merit, it's God's love. And the only requirement to receive it, belief.
So this completely flips the whole idea of judgment on its head. It's not about a scale, weighing your good deeds against your bad ones. According to the source, the judgment is much simpler. The light, Jesus, has come into the world, and the choice is yours. Do you come into the light where everything is exposed, or do you shrink back into the darkness because you prefer what it hides?
All right, so let's zoom back out and bring this all together. What is the final takeaway from this late-night meeting? Why does this ancient conversation, according to our source, have so much to say about our modern world of meritocracy and achievement?
Well, the source concludes that any system run by humans is basically doomed to fail, and for one simple reason, our own nature. Because of what the text calls waywardness, our tendency to go our own way, we will always, inevitably, corrupt any system of leadership to hold on to our own power. What starts as a system of merit always ends up being a system to protect the powerful.
And here's the kicker. If man is the problem, then man can't also be the solution. We can't fix ourselves. And that's why this source argues the only real answer has to come from completely outside our broken system. It requires an intervention, a God-man who can offer a way out that doesn't depend on our flawed and, frankly, corruptible human efforts.
And so we're left with this final, really provocative question from the source. If the leaders of our world, the top performers in our meritocracies, reject this divine message in favor of their own human-centered ones, then what wisdom do they really have? It's a huge challenge to how we define success, how we define wisdom, and ultimately, how we define what's true.